Hey, Chief Meteorologist Matt Laubhan alongside our meteorologist John Dolusic, Craig Ford, and the entire WTVA 9 News team. A tornado warning has been issued for sections of Winston County. That in effect until 8 p.m. This is Doppler radar indicated rotation. We've been watching this storm for a while, that it's in an environment where it's certainly rotating, but now it's more and more likely that that rotation could lead to the development of a tornado. So let's look a little closer here, talk about kind of where we're talking with this. And it's really pretty close to the intersection there of Mississippi Highway 19 and Highway 25, where we have that rotation at this point here. So a closer storm track on this does show that this storm will be making its way toward the Noxapater area. That location arriving there within about the next 20 minutes. That is assuming it's still going about 40 miles per hour. That's something we will double check here. They now have it up to 45 miles per hour, so just a hint quicker than that. Nanawaya potentially there within 30 minutes. The Handle community 36 minutes, but Plattsburgh and Stallo within the next 9 to 17 minutes as this continues to work its way in that direction. So let's define what we're looking at here for a moment. This is Doppler radar indicated rotation that a tornado could develop very soon. At this point, a tornado has not been spotted, and we have not been able to confirm debris on this. And that means we need to be taking our tornado safety rules seriously. If we do live here in Winston County, the locations I mentioned before, also want to include Louisville in that list. You're on the north side of this. You know, we have some Louisville addresses there as well, and there's going to be some motion changes on this over the next little bit here. So we want to find ourselves a sturdy structure, middle of the lowest floor, a small windowless room, wrap up in blankets and pillows, and put on a helmet to protect your head from flying debris, and of course stay there until we can give you the all clear. Unsafe places are places we want to avoid in this situation. Those would be cars, trucks, and mobile homes. If you live in a mobile home, you're out here in far eastern sections of Winston County, you might still have a few moments to get to a safe place closer and closer to this. We don't want you in that most vulnerable location. That would be cars or trucks. Those are easily flipped by a thunderstorm and the strong winds at the very least with this. Be thinking about ways to know if you're going to be in the danger zone. Never rely on just one source, whether it's Weather Call, the WTVA weather app, Weather Radio, Code Red, the FEMA app, always, which you can get alerts. Make sure you have multiple of these, because we do anticipate there will be more tornado warnings possible with this. And if your signal goes out, we do live stream at WTVA.com/live. And of course, the WTVA weather and news apps. Let's go to the wind mode here on Storm Track Doppler radar. And this is going to kind of bounce around in these. You'll notice as I kind of go between two different radar sites here, you have really bright pinks, really bright greens. This one's a little more difficult to pick out than some of them are. And you might say, well, why not that bright green? Because where we see that bright green there running ahead, if we go back to the rainfall mode here, you'll notice that things are still showing a little bit of a bow there. So there's enough that while we don't have that tight dot to dot or square to square change, there's definitely enough rotation in a couple spots along here that the National Weather Service in Jackson has decided to go ahead and issue a tornado warning on this thunderstorm. There are other thunderstorms that we are watching, but I do want to draw your attention to the fact that while we're not going to be talking much about you up here, Oxford, Grenada, locations back toward Kilmichael, or out here east of the Golden Triangle, the thunderstorm down here is obviously of a different level. And while we don't expect to have a lot of tornado-producing thunderstorms this evening, could we have that one or two? That is absolutely a possibility that we are watching. So again, back to the wind mode here, and a couple of spots there, as you can see, where there is rotation, but we don't have necessarily that pixel-to-pixel change we sometimes do. So if I were giving you our best guess based on what we're looking at here on Storm Track Doppler radar on where we are looking at this, I would be talking about now tracking pretty close to Mississippi Highway 25, south of the Louisville area, north of Plattsburgh, and staying just a little north of the Nanawaya community. So there's Louisville, obviously behind the arrow there, and so our time is ticking down for locations around Louisville. I do want to get you in the track, because whether this is a tornado or more likely at this point strong straight line winds that could briefly try to produce a tornado, we want to make sure that you are taking this seriously. So I'm going to get this with a track and now at 45 miles per hour based on that speed there. And we'll track that into Louisville, get Noxapater on this as well. Louisville, we show that for you at 7:15. Current time is 7:07, so within about 7 minutes. We have a new update on that scan there, so let's go ahead and move this eastward just a little bit, make sure we have the absolute newest time we can for you there. So now we're looking at about 7:15 still for the Louisville area. Noxapater, 7:22. Plattsburgh 712 and Mill Creek 723. Now in case this slides a little more south, I'm going to adjust this slightly farther south to include locations such as as Nanawaya. That will adjust a few of the times here that we mentioned just a moment ago there. I would say for some of those spots, your initial time we were showing you a moment ago is a little more accurate. But we're looking there for the Estes community, of course, 714, Nanawaya 731. Fern Springs at 732, Handle community there at 736, Meshulaville, if that can hold together that long, and we do expect the storm will in some form or fashion, 738 for you, and the Macedonia community at about 744 as this works toward the east, speed at about 45 miles per hour or so. Wider perspective here, again, that is the one thunderstorm we're watching closely. We do have our meteorologist John Dolusic in with us. He's continuing to interface with the folks at the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters. John, what you're looking at here behind the scenes and as well as talking with them, what do you have?
Nothing right now. That's at least good news, though. Nothing's crossed our paths yet on the social media. So right now, calm is good.
And part of that, you worry about the night end of that?
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, your visibility at night not as great. So I mean, obviously tornadoes at night hard to pick out, but hopefully we stay calm when it comes to any kind of reports. But we'll certainly have to watch that system for the next couple hours. Absolutely,
and you make a good point there, John. This probably isn't the next 15, 20 minutes on this one. No guarantees it'll continue during that time to prompt tornado warnings, but this one is in kind of a zone. Some of our projections have this hanging on for a number of hours as it continues to work through the southern section of the Golden Triangle and eventually onto the Alabama side. John, we appreciate that. Keep your eyes peeled and let us know what you end up coming up with there. So new scan coming in here on Storm Track Doppler radar. Our rainfall part of this is a little bit more oriented up and down as opposed to upper right, lower left. That distinction there tells me that the rotation could be getting maybe just a little bit more organized on this. Looking at the wind mode there. This has it probably closer to the Vowel community, but we're also looking fairly high up. This is looking from our radar site down in Jackson. I'm going to look probably just as high up, but instead what I want to do is I want to look at the one coming from around the Golden Triangle, actually in Monroe County there, and just to check the wind mode there. And again, most of this pink that you see there, that's just looking at a lot of strong winds aloft that it's combining and kind of focusing on there, more so than what we have a little closer to the ground. So at this point, I'm still thinking our location probably near the Vowel community is still the area that we're watching the most closely, but a few spots there we do have that straight line wind potential, maybe 60 or more miles per hour out of this. So definitely a strong storm. The question is, will it be strong enough to produce a tornado? That's what remains to be seen. As we go to the rainfall, and I'm going to double check just to look for tornado debris. I don't expect to see it, and most of what there might be some splotches on here that catch our eye, but this is the zone we'd be watching. I don't see anything in there that looks like tornado debris at this point, thankfully, but certainly is a situation we want to watch it very, very closely. Current time is 7:11 p.m. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Laubhan alongside our meteorologist John Dolusic, watching a storm that has prompted a tornado warning in Winston County. That warning in effect until 8 p.m. What does that mean? A tornado warning is issued in a situation where it's possible that a tornado could end up forming. And so in this situation, that's where Doppler radar detects rotation. The folks at the National Weather Service in Jackson, looking at the same radar data we are, definitely seeing rotation aloft. And because we're looking 3/4 of a mile above the surface here, making sure that that rotation's at the surface is something we don't know. Typically during the day, we'd rely on a lot more spotter reports. While we do have spotters out there with North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters, and we hope to hear back from them soon. At this instant here, we thankfully do not have confirmation that this is a tornado that has touched down. We want to make sure that in Louisville, in Estes, in Noxapater, that we are finding our way to a tornado safe place. Same thing if you live in Nanawaya, Fern Springs, you're within this tornado warning. Meshulaville, I think we can be getting closer to one of these if the structure we're in is not one of these. That means get to a building, whether it's a grandma's house, a friend's house, hopefully next door, very close by a community shelter. And if you're going to a community shelter, by the way, I have my mask right here that I set behind the scenes. Please wear a mask. We don't want to turn one emergency situation into another one that has bad consequences with it. So keep that in mind. Many, if not most, emergency shelters are requiring you to wear masks as well. So make sure to have yours handy for that. Let's go ahead and look here a little closer. Latest location of where we kind of expect things based on our latest data. The wind mode, I still show probably our main circulation close to Highway 25 there. Tracking along Highway 25, generally still in the direction, I would say, of Louisville, maybe just a little bit south of the Louisville area. I'll go ahead and paste on here the spot that we're kind of looking at this moment here. It's probably where I'd put my main circulation at this point. Most of these green returns, typically we would click on it, we'd show you how fast the winds are. This is going to throw off some of our wind returns, making them a little bit less accurate in this situation. But thankfully, in all our discussion with the National Weather Service, with the folks in the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters, what they're looking at this point here is still rotation on this. And I do, at least on the rainfall mode here, have a little bit more clarification on kind of what we're looking at here. I would say Plattsburgh Road, near Jones Road, and this right there is Mississippi Highway 395. That's where I put our circulation at this point there. Between that and really Mississippi Highway 25, I know that's a fairly main thoroughfare in this area. So let's be watching out for folks, giving folks a call that maybe don't know ahead that this storm is one we definitely have to watch very, very closely as it continues to move its way toward the north and east. Let's go to the wind mode here on Storm Track Doppler radar. Again, that big pink blob is a radar error that we kind of expect in this situation. So what I'm doing is I'm perfectly positioned between up in Monroe County and down in the Jackson area, the two radars, neither one looking right down at the surface, both kind of looking aloft. And thankfully at this point, both showing rotation but not showing evidence of a tornado touchdown. We look at the debris mode here to kind of verify that. And again, going between those two sites, I don't see anything that looks like tornado debris at this moment, thankfully, on this thunderstorm. But Louisville, certainly the lightning portion of this, heavy rainfall. There will be some small hail, at least with this portion of the thunderstorm as well, and wind gusts up here on the north side that could potentially be up to around 50 to 60 miles per hour. So it's not just the rotation on this one, but in this case, it also includes that potential that we'll have some strong wind gusts with this as well. Wind mode here, and let's see if we have another best location. Again, I'm probably putting this pretty close there to Mississippi Highway 25 and Mississippi Highway 395. I feel like this is slowing down a little bit, John. I'm going to bring in our meteorologist, John Dolusic, on this here. Do you have a forward speed on this?
I do not, but when you talk about slow, we were talking about just about a little while before the actually warning came out. It was taking that little bit of a shift over toward the east instead of a direct. It was more of an east-northeast track.
As opposed to just straight northeast.
Yeah, and like say, slowing down sometimes when that kind of a little trend, when you start getting that stronger circulation and everything's trying to work its way in this little bit of a machinery that's going on in the world of weather, it maybe sometimes does slow down a little as that trick from earlier.
Okay, so that's probably what we're looking at there, John. I appreciate that analysis. He's right. I mean, it is going a little bit more east of north over the last little bit here. And really, I'm going to go ahead and adjust my track to reflect that for a moment. So let's adjust this a little bit more east than that toward the Lake Forest Ranch area, Meshulaville, eventually just beyond this, close to around 8 p.m. for the Meshulaville area, but we're looking in the nearer term. Noxapater about 724 there, Estes 728, Boone 737, Fern Springs 743, and 751 the Lake Forest Ranch area. Now, looking at the rainfall mode here on Storm Track Doppler radar, what we do have is a little bit more of what we call an inflow notch. See how you have the reds and oranges all kind of in this C shape up here, and you have an area where you have a little bit more of an inflow. What's trying to happen here on this thunderstorm, and what we're kind of waiting to see what's going to be the winning thought, is this is some stronger winds kind of pushing out behind this. Is it enough to really get this to rotate up and produce a tornado? We don't expect we'll necessarily have strong tornadoes tonight. That's probably not what we have. But we could have brief tornadoes, 80, 90 mile per hour winds with those, and so that is our concern that we have to monitor very closely. The wind mode here on Storm Track Doppler radar, unfortunately, just is not helping us out a bunch at this time. So we're going to stick primarily with the rainfall mode, because that is pretty clear that we would have it right here along Mississippi Highway 395, just west of Noxapater. And so assuming we're still going at about that 40 to 45 miles per hour, it tells me my time's ticking down here in Noxapater. I show you in less than 6 minutes now. Hopefully this is just strong wind. And in that right, we could have some tree branches and things damage to the shingles, that kind of stuff that comes out of this. The fact you kind of have this arch sort of shape, this kind of bow shape, like a bow and arrow you're pulling back there, well, that is almost always an indication of strong winds. And on this thunderstorm, that wrapping of the strong winds back there could potentially briefly try to allow it to produce a tornado. Our discussion with the Weather Service as they continue to update this, again, their description of it is Doppler radar indicated rotation. And that is rotation that thankfully is not being confirmed by storm spotters at this moment or a tornado on the ground. Then hopefully that remains the case, but there still remain questions as to whether or not this will will take that next step there. So we're looking from down in the Jackson area right now, the rotation there, and then we're looking from Monroe County. So even though we have this place where it's coding in the winds wrong, I would put it right there near the Yarborough Carter Road, south of Mississippi Highway 25, west of Noxapater. The circulation is not terribly strong, but a brief tornado remains a possibility out of it. And the thing is we're looking high enough up, 3/4 of a mile up in the air. Where does a tornado happen? It happens down here at the ground. So that's the concern, is that it might not look as great up there in this kind of environment. It's January after all, but it can still obviously have those impacts closer to the surface. So based on that new location where we'd have that, we're looking at Noxapater. Time frame for you now 3 minutes. So you can see that time continues to tick down. So with these final 3 minutes here, let's talk about some unsafe places. And if you're in one of these, and you can hear my voice at this moment, we need to do a little bit better. Cars, trucks, we don't want to be in those. Easily knocked over by the strong straight line winds. And easily picked up by a stronger tornado. And while this is not likely to be a high-end tornado threat, it's still possible that it hits at the wrong angle, a high-profile vehicle rolls it over, and bad things happen. So we want to make sure that we are into a sturdy structure. That means the lowest floor of a sturdy structure. Middle of that floor, wrap up in blankets and pillows, and put on a helmet to protect yourself from that potential for flying debris. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Laubhan alongside our meteorologist John Dolusic, watching a circulation there just west of the Noxapater area at this time. It is by no stretch of the imagination an absolute, we're sure of this tornado, but it's in a location where it looks possible that one could be developing or could occur, with us having very little confirmation of it happening until we get the reports of damage after the fact. So this is one where we're not going to be probably pointing at this saying it's touchdown right now. We're going to be looking at it saying, I think a touchdown a few minutes ago, unfortunately. And so that's when we're looking at this tornado debris. That's what I kind of want to draw your attention to for a minute here. We don't have any tornado debris on here, but this is not a predictive product. This is something that after it's hit something and carried it in the air. So in some cases it might be 4 or 5 minutes before it shows up on this tornado debris. So we don't have that at this moment. That does not mean that we can't verify that something like that is happening down closer to the ground. But I would say very close to the Noxapater area. This little hook you see there is where I would be putting my tornado on this at this time, very near Noxapater. I'm going to look just slightly wider, make sure that that kind of jives with the overall look of this thunderstorm. Let's get some movement on it there. Yeah, I'd still probably put it pretty close to that spot there, so pretty close to the Noxapater area. But let's track kind of a broader track, what we call a squall track on this, about 45 miles per hour, just to make sure that we don't miss it and it hasn't kind of moved in on us. So Noxapater, current time is 7:21. Noxapater for you, that is the time of arrival on this. So hopefully you are in that tornado safe place, as whatever this rotation is, whether it's a tornado, whether it's just a spin up in the clouds, crossing Mississippi Highway 15 as we speak, south of the Louisville area, close to Noxapater, close to Claytown. We'll be approaching Mississippi Highway 397 within the next few minutes here. Speaking to that, I want to go ahead and we're going to get this set up, our tool here, to where we can show both a distance and estimated time of arrival based upon a 45-mile-per-hour speed. So assuming it is over Mississippi Highway 15, that means we're no more than about 4 miles and 5 minutes away from crossing Mississippi Highway 397, assuming we're still going at about 45 miles per hour on this. So brief tornadoes possible out of this, probably not long-lasting ones, but a brief tornado is a tornado, and even if it's small, if it affects you, it can have very devastating impacts. For folks in Louisville, heavy rainfall, you're clearly in the midst of it. Lots of cloud-to-ground lightning, power disruptions, a possibility out of this for you, something they're watching that potential there. But at this point here, we have had no reports of those coming in, but certainly our folks behind the scenes here monitoring things at television stations, we continue to see whether or not that ends up being the case. Closer inspection, looking for the rainfall mode here, and kind of looking at that area there where we're still showing some of that spin near Young's Crossing Road there, south of Louisville on Mississippi Highway 15, where we're still kind of placing what is a fairly broad rotation. Wind mode has been very little help, unfortunately, for us at this time, just because of the angle. Sometimes we get this kind of error, what we call a de-aliasing error behind the scenes here, and that's unfortunately what we have out of this, which kind of confounds, makes it more difficult for us to nail down exactly which we're looking at out of this. So we're going to look from both the Golden Triangle and then from Jackson. They're both kind of struggling in that same spot there to get a good handle on where it's at. But certainly there's rotation there, and we're hopeful that it is just rotation and nothing more at this time. Our meteorologist, John Dolusic, will bring on our two-shot here. He is continuing to monitor things as well. John, any discussion from the folks at Storm Chasers?
No discussion from the Storm Chasers, just reading some of the updates from the National Weather Service down in Jackson talking about it's a weaker circulation and still needs to be watched. And like you said, those little tidbits of problems of trying to get the right circulation, with that little computer error going on there, but everything's, it's technology still better than not, and at least you can at least tell where the storm is at if you can't see the exact circulation, but still.
Yeah, we're kind of used to it behaving a little better than this. Everybody that has radar is having that issue right now. Yeah, you're right. So they're kind of on the same track. Brief tornado possible still.
Yep. And again, good news, as a matter of fact, checking out any kind of tweets from anybody, no tweets of any kind of damage. Usually by now, maybe after 10, 15 minutes, you start getting little inklings of some things going on. I've been searching for the counties like Winston County and searching for Neshoba County and areas like that, and nothing has been mentioned from anybody in those areas. So that's at least good news.
That's good news. That's great news. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Keep your eyes on it. Really appreciate you looking into that and your guidance on this. So it's a good situation here where we have not had reports of damage on this. We're hopeful we don't. We apologize for interrupting programming this evening, but in this situation, we kind of have to follow the lead of the National Weather Service on this one because it's in an environment where we have rotation for sure. We're just not convinced 100% it's down at the surface. I don't want you to take my lack of conviction there as not wanting to take this seriously in Boone or Estes or Claytown or Fern Springs or even ahead here toward Missoulaville and near the Lake Forest Ranch area of Noxubee County because this storm is heading toward you. It's, I would say, probably a little weaker than it was when we started this coverage a few minutes ago there, but it's still in an environment where it's showing rotation, could potentially at some point try to take that next step and produce a tornado. Speaking to the tornado threat, we do continue to have a tornado watch that impacts all locations in our viewing area outside of Lafayette, Yalobusha, and Grenada counties. What this means, what this watch means, is that the ingredients are in place that could lead to the development of a tornado. But they're not necessarily being combined for you. Where they're being combined is in this red box here, this tornado warning that remains in effect for sections of Winston and Attala counties, though the part of it in Attala County has moved out of those locations there. So that is kind of the backdrop here where we all have that potential. 1 o'clock in the morning is the time frame between now and then where it's possible, but I would say most of us will be canceled out well before the conclusion of that watch. So current time is 7:25 p.m. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Laubhan alongside our meteorologist John Dolusic, the WTVA 9 News team, as we continue to watch a thunderstorm that is showing weak signs of rotation. It is not screaming from the rooftops that it is going to produce a tornado, but I don't think we're going to get that kind of signature out of this sort of a storm. A lot of times in this situation, it doesn't look terribly impressive on radar, and then we get the report after the fact, EF0, EF1 tornado, where we get 80, 90 mile per hour winds out of a tornado after it touches down and causes some sporadic damage. That's the situation. This is not what we call a long track tornado. This is not one like moved through Louisville in 2014 or some of the strong ones that we've had in the past. That is not the scenario with this. This is brief tornado touchdowns if they occur, and thankfully at this point we're still in the if they occur situation. As we define what we're looking at here, this is Doppler radar indicated rotation that could develop into a tornado very soon. Hence the reason this warning is in effect. It's in effect between now and 8 p.m. I do think that this will probably exit Winston County before 8 p.m. And if the rotation drops off enough, the folks at the National Weather Service might look to cancel it. But at this point, we want to treat this seriously. If you're ahead of this, just give us a few minutes here. Let's go into that tornado shelter if we do live in Mill Creek and Boone, east of Louisville in particular, where we are watching this the closest. The wind mode on this has been less than helpful from time to time, but I will say that it does look a little bit more clear right near that leading edge there near the Estes community. So that is where I would say our rotation is at this point here, just a little east of Noxapater, northeast of Noxapater, where our rotation is the most significant. So what has probably happened in the last few minutes here, this has gone through a little bit of a weakening phase. And so as it's gone through a little bit of a weakening phase, we're hopeful at some point this tornado warning will be dropped. But a lot of times what happens is it weakens only to strengthen once again. This storm is clearly in the zone where it has the most fuel to work off of, and so that's kind of the backdrop we're thinking here. So very near Estes, where I would have this, just along Mississippi Highway 397, or at least crossing that within the next couple of moments, where this storm is at this time. I'm going to go back and we're going to check the radar. We're going to check the speed on this, because I do feel like this has changed speed. So I'm going to have to kind of watch things on my monitor here for a moment. So let's go back about a half hour so I can make sure we have kind of a good idea on the distance, so we can really nail that down. Last half hour we moved about 19 miles, so that would put us at about 40 miles per hour on that. 40 miles per hour on this tornado warning. So it is moving now about 40 miles per hour, so it has slowed down just a little bit. So our tornado warning remains in effect for still the Louisville area, Lake Tiacaca there, Estes, Noxapater, Claytown, Boonville, Mill Creek, Fern Springs, in effect until 8 p.m. as this continues to work its way toward the east. So that is what we are watching there, and we are continuing to look at the wind, looking at some of these other things. That looks a little bit more impressive, and it's right kind of where we show the Estes community, right there south of this little 397 flag. That's where this is getting a little bit more organized. So sometimes these weaken a little bit and then they come back up, and so that's the concern, is that this one is actually on the increase once again. We've gone through about 10-15 minutes here of this weakening. So to kind of verify that, I'm going to jostle back and forth here between a couple of different radar sites. We're going to look out of the folks down in Jackson, that radar site, and we're going to look at Monroe County. They're both pretty much exactly dead on where they have the positioning. And so this is the spot where it's kind of reorganizing there, right along Mississippi Highway 397 as it works its way east. There's definitely some strong winds with this as well there. So I'd have it right there just southeast of the Louisville area, approaching the Boone community, and that's where we would place it at this moment. So dropping our speed down to about 45 miles per hour. I'd put it into Boone within about the next 4 minutes there along Mississippi Highway 14. So rotation there on Storm Track Doppler radar, continuing to watch it into those spots as it continues to work its way east at about 40 miles per hour. Now 40 miles per hour on that, where we would place that circulation at this time. Going back a couple of scans, you can see how this is kind of emerged, where you have this one straight line there. And so the concern is that this starts to kind of, from the backside here, kind of rotate back around, and then we get another push of strong winds where this potentially tries to produce a tornado closer to the Boone area. So we're still a few minutes away from that happening, still trying to isolate whether or not that is going to end up happening. But this tornado warning continues until 8 p.m. for the eastern part of Winston County in particular. If you live, let's give some all clears here for a moment. If you do live back here out for Vowell in the Hines community, Rural Hill, Noxapater even, some of those Noxapater addresses north side of there may still need to be in that tornado safe place, but I'd say Noxapater. Louisville, give me about 5 minutes there, but Hines, Vowell, south western portions of Winston County, everything west of Highway 15, you can come out of that tornado safe place at this moment here. East of that, clearly we still have that concern. Wind mode on Storm Track Doppler radar getting a little bit more organized there along Mississippi Highway 397. Let's go ahead and pop on where we think that rotation is getting a little bit tighter at this moment. It is getting a little stronger, and it is actually lining up where we can see it a little better, unfortunately, so that's not a good sign when it becomes more obvious. Boone community, Mill Creek, we're watching it for you now, advancing that just a little bit north from where we have it there. So I would have it just slightly north near, I'm going to pull it off to be able to read it, Garrigues Road. Garrigues Road, I believe, is where we'd have our circulation at this time here as it continues to work its way toward the east. So what we also have kind of going on here is this back part there starting to rotate in. So it's this kind of organized, and that rotates in. That's going to kind of evolve to help this get a little bit more organized. We do have a storm report coming in, and let's go ahead and have John double check that, and then go ahead and give that to us here in just a moment. So he's going to kind of analyze that, and we'll talk to him here in just a moment about that. But yeah, I would have it now. If you can give me about 2-3 more minutes in Louisville, some of these addresses on the east side of town, especially between Mississippi Highway 397, Mississippi Highway 14, want to keep you in that tornado safe place. Because what has happened is now our rotation is clearer and it's not occurring within the error zone, which is more of a reason we think it is strengthening and having more and more of a potential to try to produce tornadoes. So that's what we're watching here, moving toward Boone, only a few minutes here before it moves into the Boone community there. We're going to touch base with our meteorologist, John Dolusic, here as he continues to get the latest on this. John, what are you learning?
All right. Tragedy already. I mean, that even though we may have not confirmed any kind of tornadic activity, but with the wind most likely knocking a tree down on the Natchez Trace. This is according to the Natchez Trace Park Rangers. An accident north of Thomastown on the Trace in Leake County. A tree fell across the road this evening. Driver hit the tree. The driver was dead, according to them, dead on the scene. Another car hit the tree, but they are okay. So these park rangers are working the scene right now, so tragic already. Even though we have not confirmed any kind of tornadic activity, I'm sure the wind caused the tree to fall over on the Trace.
Absolutely. That'd be this storm in all likelihood.
That's right.
So our meteorologist, John Dolusic, with that confirmation there. Let's make sure the folks at the National Weather Service have that information. So that is this thunderstorm here as it kind of moved there through Leake County a little bit ago. So the strong winds with this, it's that same thunderstorm there, so probably knocking down some trees. And that's what we talked about, where we don't get these confirmation of these reports until after the fact. So we're sitting here saying maybe, possibly for a long time, and then all of a sudden we can confirm it. And by that point, it doesn't really do you a whole lot of good if you're the one whose house was hit or whose car was hit when it's confirmed. So our thoughts and prayers, of course, with the family of that accident victim, and hopefully everyone else involved in that accident will be okay. Boone community, it's over top of you. That's where our circulation is at this time here. I would have it just pretty much right in the Boone community rotation that could potentially be this thunderstorm trying to produce a tornado. It's right in the center here, and as we talked about a minute ago, the way you have this kind of back part here, that's the circulation wrapping back around, kind of back toward the middle of that there. So as you can see, that line that's now popping on there, that is where the National Weather Service honing in more and more on that circulation that we continue to watch there. Checking for tornado debris, we'd be looking right there in that circle. We don't have any of that. So thankfully at this point, this is not a tornado that we can confirm, but it's certainly one that we want to protect ourselves from. So as we define what we're looking at here, Louisville, you can come out of that tornado safe place, but we're looking at Doppler radar indicated rotation that could lead to the development of a tornado very soon. This has not been confirmed by spotters. We have had reports of damage behind this, including trees knocked down that did cause one fatal accident. So that remains our concern there, that we could have more of those trees knocked down and someone runs into that. Clearly something that we don't want to see, unfortunately happened already. So we want to make sure we are in that tornado safe place if we live near the Boone community, if we live in eastern Winston County, and I would highly recommend that you start working your way that direction if you're out here in western sections of Noxubee County. This is right along Mississippi Highway 14, moving toward the Lake Forest Ranch area. It is getting more organized. We've gone through kind of a phase where there's about 15 minutes there where it was weaker and weaker. Well, where's it at? We're having a hard time. We're having less of a hard time finding this. So we're in really that 5-minute zone right now where it will probably try to produce a tornado. So we need to be in the lowest floor of a sturdy structure, making our way to that spot there, wrap up in blankets and pillows in a small windowless room, and stay there until we can give you the all clear. So as we bring that down for a moment, and I'm going to adjust our circle forward here, that's where I would put it, along Mississippi Highway 14. And you'll notice just one scan to the next here, remember how this is more up and down, or upper right to lower left there? Now notice how it's kind of more backwards C at this point. So there is a wind acceleration going on here. Will it be enough to cause it to produce a tornado? That remains our concern, that it could be. Closer inspection on where we have that, along Mississippi Highway 14. Now I put you near, that is the Bobo Ming Road, and moving toward Yellow Creek Road and Harold Ming Road along Mississippi Highway 14, east of Louisville, west of the Winston-Noxubee County line. This is our circulation. It is getting stronger. We believe that we're really in that 5-minute zone where it is going to probably try to take that next step and produce a tornado. So if we have not had a tornado damage, and if that damage we had back in Leake County that caused the fatality, if that was not tornado damage, just straight line wind, this is more in the zone where that tornado potential is increasing rapidly now. So we're looking near Harold Ming Road, Yellow Creek Road. We'll check for tornado tornado debris on this, and that is not something, thankfully, that shows up at this moment here. I'm going to compare a couple of different radar sites just to make sure. We're looking out of the Columbus area right now. We're looking from Brandon right now, which is down in the National Weather Service there. And at this point here, I do not see tornado debris, thankfully, out of this. But that's something, as we mentioned earlier, it confirms the damage after the fact. So wind mode on Storm Track Doppler radar continuing to show, and I'll advance this forward a little bit more, circulation here getting more organized near Yellow Creek Road, north of Mississippi Highway 14 in rural eastern sections of Winston County. A tornado potential out of this continues to increase, and as we do a storm track, we're only going to get really Lake Forest Ranch to show up on this. 40 miles per hour, how fast it's moving, that gives us 9 minutes to the Lake Forest Ranch area. So folks who live near that, that is our concern at this point here. We're also starting to see lightning increasing a little bit more out of this thunderstorm. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the duration here to only the last 5 minutes. And the reason I'm going to do that, and we're going to make it bigger so it's a little bit easier to see it. Lightning gives us an indication of storm strength. So as we kind of leave Lake Forest Ranch in that track there, I want you to note how over the last 5 minutes the lightning strikes have increased. So let's pull it all off. Very few lightning strikes a few minutes ago. Now more lightning just in the last few minutes. That increase in lightning strikes on the forward part of the thunderstorm like this is an indication of strengthening. And so that strengthening could potentially be this storm trying to produce a tornado or going through that process right now. If you notice, there's just a little area. Saw it flash there? There's that little spot in the middle. We call that a weak echo region. That has a tendency to sometimes happen before or as a thunderstorm is trying to produce a tornado. So at the height we're looking, which is about a half to 3/4 of a mile above the surface, it's not bright yet because we don't have tornado damage in that spot, but that is the location where we'd be looking, right at that weak echo region. And notice it does kind of correlate perfectly to where we kind of see this, this interaction here. So Odie Eaves Road, we believe we have a circulation here, a tornado in the development phases or potentially in progress. That is obviously our ultimate concern, but I would say that it's looking more and more likely that if this was going to produce a tornado, we've talked about we're kind of entering that 5 minutes, we're really probably solidly in that period. If this is going to produce a tornado where this storm is at its strongest and potentially trying to do that. So following near Yellow Creek Road there in eastern Winston County. As we get fewer and fewer places that show up there, we can use our arrow here to kind of give you an idea. We're 1 minute from Harold Ming Road. From that Yellow Creek Road, we keep mentioning we're about 2 minutes away. From Barge Firetown Road, assuming we're still at about 40 to 45 miles per hour, we're about 4 minutes away from you, and we're about 7 minutes away from the Winston Noxubee County line. So this is a storm that continues to show rotation, continues to strengthen, continues to have all the signs of a thunderstorm that will produce damage. Hopefully it doesn't, but this is kind of the scenario where that typically happens. So again, our latest circulation near Harold Ming Road in eastern Winston County, fairly rural area out here, but we do have folks that we live here, watch us, email us from this zone, send social media as well. We don't want you going outside and trying to take a picture of this. It is dark, and the kind of brief tornadoes we'd see in this situation are pretty much not visible. And this one clearly back in the rainfall, in all likelihood would be rain wrapped in a way that would not allow us to be able to see it. So as you can see there, now the radar data is updated to where we had that circulation just a moment ago. Looking at the wind data, continue to show that same spot there. Looking for tornado debris, looking at that same spot, and I thankfully do not see this producing tornado debris at this moment here. Hopefully that continues to be the case, but a good sign there that that is not something that we necessarily have at this moment in time. So let's widen this out just a little bit more. I want to double check this storm that's kind of forming here again in advance near the Macedonia community. No circulation there that we're concerned with at this time. Hopefully that remains the case, but certainly we continue to be concerned with this primary thunderstorm. There are other thunderstorms out there, and we are watching. We do continue to have a tornado watch in effect until 1 a.m. This one's one we're going to have to watch. It's still fairly weak in comparison to what we have going on down in Winston County. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Laubhan alongside meteorologist John Dolusic as we continue to monitor a situation where we have seen a tornado warning prompted for locations in Winston County. Looking at the latest on this, I do believe the National Weather Service is probably going to end up extending this tornado warning eastward, especially considering it's kind of at its peak right now. And when we see and when we look at these nighttime winter tornadoes, which is what this is. Our concern is when we start to see what we call a weak echo region, and we have that on this. So here's Missoulaville, here's Lake Forest Ranch. Right there is that weak echo region we were talking about. I'm going to encircle it for you there. And it's just a 1 pixel that's a little bit lighter than the rest. When we kind of get these storms to show this circulation, you kind of get this where it curves back like that, and you could almost see where you had kind of a middle area that this is trying to rotate into there. So that is a spot where we are concerned this could potentially be producing a tornado at this moment here, or at least attempting very hard to do so in the next few minutes. So as we define this at this moment, this is a situation where Doppler radar has indicated rotation that could develop into a tornado. We have not confirmed it with debris. We have not spotted it, but both those things happen after the fact. Looking at the debris mode on Storm Track Doppler radar, I don't see it at this point, but we'll have to watch that zone very closely in the next few minutes. In the next 4 or 5 minutes, we're getting this time where that remains something that we could potentially see. As anticipated, tornado warning has been extended now. That does include Noxubee and Lowndes County. So the reason this has been issued, rotation that could develop into a tornado very soon as we're looking downstream here. This does not include Columbus. This does not include New Hope, but certainly we're looking at Brooksville, Macon, Missoulaville, Lynn Creek, Cliftonville, Prairie Point, all in the path of this circulation, this thunderstorm that could potentially try to produce a tornado. And that means we need to be getting to our tornado safe place. And in Lowndes County, Foreston area, as well as Noxubee and Winston County, we need to be in that tornado safe place, which means the lowest floor of a sturdy structure, wrap up in blankets and pillows, and stay there until we can give you the all clear. If you're out here far eastern Noxubee County, our moments are ticking away. This is moving 40 miles per hour. That's fairly fast, and it'll be into your location within the next few minutes here. We want to avoid cars, trucks, mobile homes, large open rooms. A reminder that if your signal goes out, we do stream live at WTVA.com/live and the WTVA weather and WTVA news apps. And of course, those weather calls going out for a lot of folks there. New updated position. Let's get you new updated timing here. Lake Forest Ranch, it's on your doorstep. 1 minute. Macon, 19 minutes for you. The X-Prairie area in 26 minutes. Prairie Point, 32 minutes. Aubrey, 37 minutes. Memphis, Alabama at 39 minutes. And Pickensville coming in at about 43 minutes. Strong rotation on this thunderstorm. It does not look like Brooksville, for whatever reason, popped into that track. We're going to come in closer. We're going to make sure we get Brooksville into that track there, Missoulaville as well. So I'm going to do what's called a squall track, and so this is going to include some folks that aren't going to see the strongest of this rotation, and we'll give you some specific times here. So we're in Lake Forest Ranch pretty much right now. Missoulaville, 7:51 there. Brooksville at 8:02. Deerbrook at 8:11. And Ravine and Cliftonville about 8:16. Cliftonville 8:21 there in the Ravine community. Looking at the wind mode on Storm Track Doppler radar, definitely still showing that circulation pretty much right in the Lake Forest Ranch area, just west of there, south of Little Dummy Line Road, and very near, tracking very near Yellow Creek Road, as it has for a while here, honestly. So there is the circulation where we would put it right now, pretty much on the road that leads to Lake Forest Ranch there. Looking at the precipitation mode on Storm Track Doppler radar, we continue to show that. What we don't have as much at this moment, thankfully, is one of those weak echo regions. It's far enough away from the radar site, we don't always expect to see those, but I'd have it pretty much right there. Let's get an exact road so that we can, sometimes hearing that home road there makes the difference, but we are, see if I can get this to kind of pop on the specific road there. So this would be Lake Forest Road, right there. So Lake Forest Road, where we have our circulation right now, pretty much on top of Lake Forest Ranch. Let's hope that's not a tornado there, but certainly this storm is strong enough in this situation that it wouldn't be shocking to have a tornado being produced on this at this moment. So this is significantly stronger than it was even 15, 20 minutes ago. What we also have on this all along this area there, and that will impact Missoulaville, and that will eventually impact Macon, potentially there. This little arc shape you have there, a strong straight line wind, 60+ miles per hour out of that, causing sporadic wind damage. But this is rotating back around there over top of Lake Forest Ranch, now probably just past Lake Forest Ranch, where we have this circulation that could potentially be a tornado on the ground at this moment. Looking at the wind mode here, unfortunately not quite as clear cut as I would like to see on that. That's, as we've mentioned off and on, a good thing there. Let's go to the debris mode, and thankfully at this time I do not see tornado debris on this, and I don't think that we have had it on this in the past, so hopefully that remains the case. I want to bring in our meteorologist, John Dolusic, if we could, for a moment here. And John, looking at this and talking with the folks, getting any good reports?
Well, not good. Just looking at the National Weather Service again from Jackson, they're reporting one of their spotters reported a tornado on the ground just a few moments ago, just east of Louisville. However, Corey with the North Mississippi Storm Spotters and Chasers reports with his family in Louisville proper at least nothing that they saw in Louisville proper. But this is just east of Louisville. According to the National Weather Service down in Jackson now, a tornado on the ground. And quoting the meteorologists from down in the Jackson area, they would not be surprised that with the structure, the way things are looking, as you mentioned, there is an actual major tornado with this now.
Okay, so that's the concern. And any tornado that impacts you is a very significant one. Thank you, John, for that report. So there you go. As we talked about it, we were entering that time frame as it was ratcheting up, where it could potentially still be producing a tornado. And now confirmation, at least from a storm spotter with the National Weather Service in Jackson, that this did, within the last 5 to 10 minutes, produce a tornado, probably right there where we were talking about that weak echo area, that little dot in the middle, probably a tornado there near Mississippi Highway 14 with that. So that's why, as we mentioned, we weren't going to get confirmation until after the fact. That's what happened. That's why you have to be careful before this moves into your area, and take, whether you look at it as a waste of time or what it is, you just have to take that time, go to that tornado safe place, and then afterward go, whew. Thankfully, it wasn't something, but unfortunately for some folks, it seems like it was. So we'll be finding out from the emergency manager there in Winston County here soon what kind of situation it is. And also, I believe our stand from the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters is down there in position near the Brooksville area. So we'll hopefully get more information from him as this moves in. A tornado warning for Winston County has been canceled out, as this circulation is now just east of the Lake Forest Ranch area in Noxubee County. I would show it just south of Yellow Creek Road, probably right there where that point is at this time. That's where our circulation likely is at this moment. Let's look at the wind mode on Storm Track Doppler radar. Well, now we finally have something that's clear-cut there and is actually clarifying to a certain extent. I would say that we should get a new update here in a minute, and it should be south here of Yellow Creek Road is where I would have our circulation at this moment. No guarantees this is going to be a tornado touchdown, but it remains a possibility that this storm could take that next step and produce a tornado. So that is the spot there just northeast of Lake Forest Ranch. This is a part of this thunderstorm that within the last 10 minutes has had a spotter report of a tornado touchdown on this. And there's our update. Position looks good. So Brooksville, we're within 15 minutes for you. The Deerbrook community, 22 minutes. Now, that's not to dismiss Macon. We know we have some Macon addresses north of that are going to be involved in this. And I would certainly still stay in a sturdy structure in my safe place if I lived in Macon as well. The strongest the circulation likely stays north, but these straight line wind events where they produce the brief tornadoes, I never want to be too lackadaisical with these, because the positioning is always just a little bit shady, and we don't usually get the same confirmation we get out of the big tornadoes. So if we go back here, what I do want to take just a moment here to see is if we can tell where that tornado did touch down. And it could be this spot here close to 744 there. That little dot you see near the Herald community. Let's go look at the wind there. Nope, that does not timing-wise work out, so that's good. Let's check in then right there. So this look about 740. Let's look at the tornado debris mode. I don't think that I can confirm tornado debris on this, thankfully, because what we have kind of down there a little farther south. Let's just look at that. And the reason this is important to do is just to make sure we know exactly what we're looking at. I don't know that those returns there are strong enough to confirm anything, the wind mode. But that does kind of emphasize the fact that there's even a question in that, why we're emphasizing to folks that do live in the Macon area that even though I think the circulation is going to stay a little north, I think you should get to that tornado safe place just in case. So meteorologist Matt Laubhan alongside our meteorologist John Dolusic as we continue to track a tornado warning in effect until 8:45 p.m. that does involve Noxubee and southern Lowndes County, really the extreme southern portion of Lowndes County there. What we do know is this: within the last 10 minutes we have had a tornado touchdown out of this thunderstorm in Winston County. What kind of damage? We don't know that at this point. Were there injuries? We're not sure. But we do know that this thunderstorm has previously produced injuries when it was was back in Leake County as a tree fell on the Natchez Trace Parkway and caused a fatality, unfortunately. So our thoughts, our prayers are with those folks. We don't want to see more of that, but it remains a possibility, even in this area in advance here, that could be some strong wind gusts out of that as well. You can see our characteristic hook echo back here near the Lake Forest Ranch area. North and east of that is the area we're most concerned with. We're now down to 14 to 13 minutes for the Brooksville area. Deerbrook 21 minutes, Cliftonville 25 minutes, Ravine 29 minutes, Bigby Valley 31 minutes, and Pickensville 37 minutes. This is a circulation that within the last 10 minutes has had a confirmed tornado touchdown with it. The wind mode on Storm Track Doppler radar is more obvious than it's probably been all night long, and it still shows it just a little northeast of the Lake Forest Ranch area where our circulation is the most obvious at this time. I'm going to look from the Jackson radar site. It has it about the same spot, though I think it's just a little bit ahead of that. I'd put it right where that arrow is now at this time. Good. And it does look like radar has kind of caught up. The Monroe County site has caught up with Jackson. And so I would have it west of West Span Road there in Noxubee County, where this is continuing to move in the direction generally of Brooksville. It seems like we've had quite a few down there over the last year plus. We're watching very closely for those folks in the Brooksville area as it moves toward McLeod Chapel Road. So because we don't have a ton of communities that are going to pull on the map here, I'm going to instead use our little arrows. We kind of work our way through here. So I believe that's probably Piney Woods Road, about 3 minutes and 3 miles away from that. From McLeod Chapel Road, we're now about 4 minutes and about 5 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes away from you. And from Brooksville, we're talking at most about 11 minutes. 11 minutes there until it makes it into the Brooksville area. Greenfield Road within 9 minutes. This is a Doppler radar indicated rotation. This is a tornado that has within the last 10 to 15 minutes now been on the ground and potentially caused damage. And at this point, while I cannot confirm tornado debris on this, and that's a good thing, sometimes that confirmation doesn't come on these wintertime squall line sort of thunderstorms, which is what this would represent here. So define what we are looking at for a moment, and this is kind of an important conclusion to make on this. This discussion has changed over the last 10 minutes or so, because we did have Doppler radar rotation, could develop into a tornado, but we did get a tornado that was spotted. And while we didn't get radar confirming debris, we did cross into this category. And when we get into these two, it's a more serious situation, simply because a storm that's proved it can do it a lot of times has that potential to do it again. And so we've proven we've had at least one tornado touchdown out of this thunderstorm, and it is our concern that we could have another one. Brooksville, that is the reason why we are doing this coverage for you and the folks that live south and west of you near Macon Lynn Creek there, near, I believe that is Harris Road. We need to be in a sturdy structure in the middle of the lowest floor of our structure. We need to find a small windowless room, wrap up in blankets and pillows, put on a helmet to protect yourself from debris, and stay there until we can give you the all clear. For the folks in the Lake Forest Ranch area, right there at the ranch, you can come out of that tornado safe place. We don't have as many folks there this time of year as we do during other times of the year. But Lynn Creek, we need that tornado safe place. We need to be there. I would still like to keep you in Macon in that tornado safe place. And while I think it's likely at this point that the main circulation stays to your north, there's no guarantees there's not some kind of second circulation that ends up forming along this line farther south. So that's what we are concerned with at this time, is the fact that this kind of trailing park down here could still potentially try to produce something with very little warning, honestly, other than what we're discussing here at the moment. So X Prairie 814, Cliftonville 818, Ravine 821, Bigby Valley 824. Current time is 7:55 p.m. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Laubhan alongside our meteorologist John Dolusic. We're watching a tornado warning that does continue in effect for Noxubee and for Lowndes counties, this area down there. What we all, for the most part, are under at this moment is a tornado watch. That remains in effect for most of our locations until 1 a.m. I do expect that within the next hour we'll have this line of counties probably canceled out of it, because that's where we have storms advancing at this moment. And in particular, we are concentrating on the tornado warnings. That's why we're not spending a whole lot of time on the rest of this, because we're down here on that tornado warning. But it still remains possible that some of these thunderstorms back here could potentially try to produce tornadoes in their own right at some point. That's why this watch is issued. It tells us the ingredients are in place, and at some point those ingredients could potentially come together. But if we're looking closer here for Houston, we're not at that point with this thunderstorm yet. though it's certainly one we're going to have to watch. And this one did kind of split off and break, this north part breaking off a little bit faster. We'll go ahead and track it at 40. That might be just a little bit slow, honestly, but I'm going to track that still at about 40 miles per hour for Houston, for a few other locations as it works its way toward Nettleton. At longest, we're talking 7:59 for you, Woodland, 8:01 for Houston, Okolona 8:22, Nettleton 8:34, Wren 8:35. At longest, it could run a little faster than that. That is a storm we'll watch. We're not at the point yet where that is a storm that is producing a tornado, but it remains one that we'll have to watch pretty closely. As we come down here to Noxubee and southern Lowndes counties, a reminder, of course, that sometimes the tornado sirens go off when you're not necessarily in it. For folks in the Columbus area, if you've got a countywide alert from this storm is solidly going to stay to your south. So this is down here, the far southeastern corner of Lowndes County. The concern we also have is now we have another one of these thunderstorms out here near the X Prairie area that's gotten ahead. And that thunderstorm out there near Prairie Point Road does not have rotation on it, but the fact it's got out ahead, if it were to deepen a little more, there could be greater potential that tries to at some point take that next step as well. But our circulation, our rotation, our potential tornado, one area that had within the last 20 minutes produced a tornado, sits right here south of Lynn Creek Road. Near Glen Road, southwest of Macon Lynn Creek Road, where we're looking at this moment, approaching the Brooksville area. It doesn't scream for sure tornado to me, and looking at the debris mode, we cannot confirm it. But there still remains enough organization on this thunderstorm, and with a history of it producing a tornado, that we have to assume that it still has that potential at this time. It has gone through a little bit of a weakening phase. The tornado touchdown that we did get the report of was back here closer to the Boone community, north of Mississippi Highway 14, or near Mississippi Highway 14. The storm has weakened a little bit since then. It's gone through a cycle. We'll have to see if it strengthens once again, which remains a possibility. These aren't going to produce long track tornadoes, but they might briefly touch down some tornadoes. And so that is our concern, and that's the reason we're doing this coverage at this time here. So as we kind of move this eastward, we get a longer track on this thunderstorm so we can give some advance heads up, because I know not everybody has a sturdy structure that they live in. And so when you see these times, this is kind of where the front end of this second storm arrives. And so I put this on to say, hey, if you live in the Delma area, if you live in Pickensville, Coalfire, Reform, Carrollton, Stanzel, if you live in those spots and watch us on WTVA 9 News, you still have a few moments to get to a stronger structure. That might be grandma's house, that might be a community structure. You still have a few moments to do that. But when you're in this warning, when you're like the folks out here are in Noxubee and southern Lowndes County, far southeast Lowndes County, it's too late to try to find a different structure. You want to make sure to do the best you can, because a sturdy structure, middle of lowest floor, wrap up in blankets, pillows, and stay put until we can give you the all clear. What are we talking about here? Well, cars and trucks, you don't want to ride this out in one of those, because most fatalities from tornadoes or severe thunderstorms like this have a tendency to be damage to cars and trucks or mobile homes. So keep that in mind. Current time is 8 p.m. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Laubhan alongside our meteorologist John Dolusic as we continue to track a Doppler radar indicated tornado warning. We have had no follow-up reports from what was a tornado touchdown. At about 7:40 to 7:44, report of a tornado touchdown out of this thunderstorm when it was in Winston County. Current time is now 8 p.m. We have not had any other confirmation since that point. That's a good sign. But at night like this, we get very few data points. We get very few times where we get confirmation out of these. So the fact that we got it at all is a concern. And the fact that we have two areas here that we're watching as well is also one. This is not what the tornado warning was issued for, but I am going to put a storm track on that. I'm going to keep it about 40 miles per hour. And I do want to get a few other spots into this. Aubrey community in 2 minutes, Pickensville in 9 minutes, the Garden community in 13 minutes, Saps 15 minutes, Dillsburg in 20 minutes, and Lois Spring in 21 minutes. This is a storm showing more organization. It doesn't have the same kind of rotation of what we have back west, but it's organizing, and any organized storm has hail potential to it, some gusty winds up to 50, maybe 60 miles per hour, and at some point in the future, it could get organized enough it tries to produce a tornado. So that is where we are watching. Our primary circulation is approaching the Brooksville area. And this is showing all the little dots there, the lightning strikes over the last half hour. So what I want to do is I want to kind of reel this in to show only the lightning strikes over the last 5 minutes. That was a pretty good indicator for us a little bit ago that our thunderstorm was strengthening enough that it could produce a tornado. right? We talked about the lightning strikes, and you can see our lightning strikes are pretty decent at the moment here, up a lot. So look at this. So you go back to 7:54, we'd had very few lightning strikes. And so see that big burst right there? Big burst of lightning strikes, right? That's when it produces a tornado within a few minutes there. Okay, and so it's been off and on. It does look like our lightning caught up, but there is a greater concentration at this moment. So we could be reorganizing enough that this attempts to produce another tornado again. So that is our concern there, that it could be strengthening once again. I do show some brighter green starting to show up there near the Greenfield Road. So as I pull off all of this data that's kind of sitting on top here, I put those lightning strikes and shrink them down. Brooksville, within the next couple minutes, probably next 2 or 3 minutes, for this rotation to try to move into your area. Now, I don't have really a preferential area along this line. I could make probably 3 legit arguments for where this could form. One of these 3 spots within the next 10 minutes, this storm is probably going to produce another tornado. Let me say that again. One of these 3 spots within the next 10 minutes, if history holds with this, it's probably going to produce a tornado. So we need to be looking very closely at it, and that's not to say it's not producing one now. But I can tell you that it is getting organized in those spots there. And you'll notice that you kind of have our line becoming a little more jagged here. But if this kind of gets that push from the back that it's got the last couple of times, then that remains a possibility if it kind of holds true to where it's at. So that is our concern. If you live in Brooksville, that we need to be in that tornado safe place because of that. Because, I mean, if the part of it that's moving into your area is the one that produces, 8:03 is the time. What's the time right now? Pretty much overhead, right? So in Brooksville, we have to be in that tornado safe place. I need probably another 10 or 15 minutes for you there. The Deerbrook community, we're watching this for you as well. We don't have the city name showing up there at the bottom, but Macon, you are still in this tornado warning. The entire city grid pretty much of Macon is in this tornado warning, and that's an intentional thing. We want to make sure you stay in that tornado safe place, because while I circle the stuff up here, it's not to say that that part near the Piney Woods Road area doesn't become the part that organizes enough that this tries to produce a tornado. Looking back at the wind mode here, and you can see this organization sort of happening. See that red blob right there getting a little more organized the last couple scans there, working its way eastward. How it's a little more this direction now, and it was a little more that direction before. Watch this. See how that angle changes a little bit? That's a sign that if it will produce another tornado, that we're within that probably 8-minute time frame where that begins to happen. So that is why from Macon-Lynn Creek Road, let's try that again, Macon-Lynn Creek Road to around Brooksville is where this storm is organizing to try to produce another tornado. And it has produced a tornado within the last 25 minutes now. So we have to assume it has that potential as well. Of course, right along Highway 45, just south and east of Brooksville, at the split there of Highway 45 and 45 alternate is where I would have our circulation at this point. So if you do know some folks that might be coming up from Scuba toward Macon this time of night, tell them to stay there. Tell them to stay back. We don't want them trying to drive through this. This is going to be strong straight line winds. And while there aren't as many trees along this stretch of US 45 as there are along some others, and certainly there's some more space from the edges of the road, we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we have more wrecks because of that. So one positive thing I will say about the southern part of this is it's awful far removed from what we call the forward flank, this area that kind of looks like a V out here in front. And typically you don't get one this far south, so I would say that's honing in my opinion here, obviously a little closer to that nook there near the Brooksville area on the northern part of Noxubee County. This still could have straight line winds. Something could still happen with that there. But the concern still remains. Looking at the wind mode on Storm Track Doppler radar, luckily we do not have any rotation on this front one that's too terribly pronounced. I do think the hail potential is increasing a little bit on that thunderstorm there. So while there is not a severe thunderstorm warning in Pickens County, if you look closely, see that little black dot there in the middle? That tells us extremely intense precipitation showing up in that. And when that happens, typically some strong wind gusts as well as some hailstones possible with that. It's reflecting back in a very bright way toward the radar site. We're going to look at the lightning here again. I'm just going to keep coming back to the lightning. It was such a obvious reminder a little bit ago as to how the storm was intensifying. Instead, I'm going to go with the 3-minute data just so if we can see that same uptick. Hold on. So there we show some sporadic. So I don't see an obvious uptick there, but we are getting more lightning strikes out here where we don't show precipitation. So that can tell us an updraft, a developing updraft, a strengthening, organizing, rotating part of this thunderstorm aloft there. And again, near Brooksville, I mean, this is brighter red than it was a minute ago, right? Brighter green than it was a minute ago, right? Just east of Brooksville. This is a thunderstorm getting a little more organized, continuing to try to produce a tornado. So specifically, as we go back to the rainfall mode on here, we're talking east now probably of Pilgrim Rest Road, east of Hopewell Road, along, I believe that's Mississippi Highway 3, let me double check that there, 388. So Mississippi Highway 388, about where I would put our potential tornado at this time as it continues to work its way eastward at a speed close to about 40 miles per hour or so. Let's go ahead and define what we're looking at again here in a moment. I would say that we're at that time where this could potentially be a rotation that gets a little stronger. We do have Storm Spotter there in the Brooksville area, stand with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters. No reports on this of anything at this moment, thankfully. Hopefully that remains the case, but that rotation could take the next step as we've talked about getting more organized. This line having a few more little bubbles in it than it did just a minute, little bends in it than it did just a minute ago. And in fact, Let's look closer here, because I'm actually a little more concerned about this part south of Brooksville now than I was just a moment ago, that perhaps we've peeled off this north part and this could be the area. Let's go to the wind mode. Yep. I mean, that pretty much matches. The reason we're looking at that, and this is a radar rotation, but as we look at back to the rainfall mode here, right? Do you see how it kind of has this sort of little bubble on the backside, right? So as we go back and we look at our original storm, do you see how that had that little bubble on the back side there? So that bubble can be a sign that, of the rotation of the rear inflow jet getting more organized on that portion. It's not as big as it was before. Hopefully that means it tries and fails, but that circulation is getting a little tighter in this area as a result. So looking at the wind mode, there we are. I would have it pretty much right there near Pilgrim Rest Road, near Magnolia Drive. I think we had a tornado there in the fall, very near those spots with a tropical system, if memory serves. So pretty much same locations where I put this circulation right now, getting more organized down here in Noxubee County, approaching the Deerbrook area, approaching Cliftonville. No guarantees that this is a tornado that will touch down, but as we talked about doing our little timer a minute ago on about how much longer until we thought this could produce a tornado, we're probably within about 2 or 3 minutes of that at this time. So about the next minute or two, I think that remains a possibility. We need to start assuming that this could be producing a tornado. It's again reaching that peak intensity where it'll have that potential for the next 10, 12 minutes or so, maybe next 15 minutes to try to produce a tornado. So that's what we're watching here, Deerbrook, Cliftonville, and that's why we want to remind you to get to that tornado safe place here for some of the spots. You're under a tornado warning until 8:45. The current time is at this moment about 8:10, so you still have some time. But really, Brooksville, if you live in Brooksville, have a Brooksville address, we still need to stay in that tornado safe place for the next few minutes here. But Deerbrook, Cliftonville, as far southeast corner of Lowndes County, we need to be in that tornado safe place because of this circulation here. So stay there until we can give you the all clear. Let's go back and now let's use our arrow to give you some distances and give you some times. Of course, from Mississippi Highway 388, we're now down to about 2 minutes from you where we show our circulation moving through. If we are looking toward Mississippi Highway 792, we're about 5 to 6 minutes away. I'm going to adjust our circle because our circulation, our tornado, if it were to form, is probably just a little east of that. So about 6 minutes away from Mississippi Highway 792. About to cross within the next minute and a half, Mississippi Highway 388. That's Mississippi Highway 388 east of Brooksville. A circulation, a tornado from a thunderstorm that's produced tornadoes before, and it's strong enough at this point that it's about to do it again if it continues to hold or may already be doing it. We're not going to get the same confirmation we sometimes do looking at Doppler radar, looking at debris. I'll check just to make sure there's not something else there. But at this point, I don't see tornado debris in what we're looking at there. Some of the other dots and things you might see here, I would say are unrelated largely to what we are tracking at this moment. So I would say we're still at this point in the maybe and possibly phase, thankfully not the guaranteed phase. But you can see there's even on the front end here, just this is whipping around, this is getting stronger. We'll look closer there at Mickens. Where's that? Is that Mickens Clay Road? Mickens Clay Road. When we get a new wind scan, that's where it's probably going to be. Right there near Mickens Clay Road is where our circulation is, south of Deerbrook, just along Mississippi Highway 388, about to approach the intersection of Mississippi Highway 792. That's Mississippi Highway 792. As we widen this just a little bit more, let's track this ahead. We'll see, give some longer distance locations. It might not continue to produce all the way until it gets to some of these spots there. Deerbrook, it's over top of you as we've looked in very closely on you there. We're Cliftonville within 5 minutes, Bigby Valley in 11 minutes, Forreston within 17 minutes. This is Doppler radar indicated rotation. That could potentially be a tornado period. At this point, when we saw this storm before, this was about the point where it produced a tornado. So we're at that time where if it's going to produce one, the next 5 minutes is when it's happening. So Deerbrook, near Cliftonville, near the intersection of Mississippi Highway 388 and Mississippi Highway 792, we need to be in that tornado safe place. Pugh Road, tornado safe place. Deerbrook Road at the intersection of 388, tornado safe place. We believe this to be a tornado in progress. Based on radar here, it seems like a pretty good likelihood that if it's going to produce, right now is the time in which that is happening there. Looking at the debris mode on Storm Track Doppler radar, and I'm going to have to go back and forth here a few times just kind of to see if we can confirm something there. I'm hesitant looking at what I see here to say we have tornado debris. I don't know that the exact pixels match up correctly, but there's a couple spots there that are a little suspicious. So let's hope that doesn't become less suspicious and more obvious. When it's obvious, that's never a good sign when it comes to tornado debris. But we believe this could be a tornado. If it's not producing a tornado now, it's trying very, very hard. So that's where we need to be very concerned. We should have a new scan coming in here in a few moments. But northern Noxubee County, we're at that point where the storm is trying to produce another tornado at this time. I want to bring in our meteorologist, John Dolusic. He's been monitoring our discussion with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters, as well as the National Weather Service. Thoughts?
Well, thoughts right now, there's, again, as Stan mentioned, or actually James, and I believe it was James that mentioned on no reports, really. That's good news, but again, it's been at times, you know, these little pockets that we've seen, obviously, earlier in the Leake County area with that downed tree, and then those reports just east of Louisville here in the last hour of a tornado on the ground, and as now it continues into portions of Noxubee County. It's one of those situations where it's mostly in rural areas, and that's where you don't get too many reports. And again, I believe Stan, one of our storm spotters for North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters, is in Brooksville right now. So, you know.
Hopefully we hear back from him here in the next couple minutes. I will say this, we have a second one, John. Look at this. I want to keep John up for a moment here, if you would, and look at this with me. What do you think about that? That second one down there that's kind of formed. You have the better, the more pronounced interaction here, the second one. What do you think? Could we have two? Or do we have two trying to join up into one?
Or, you know, yeah, it's everything is in the mix. Not only this storm, the storms that are off to the south and east of this storm, all of that makes the atmosphere very interesting. I mean, you know, when at one time maybe we just had one little circulation, now the interaction with those storms to the south and to the east, all that wind causes maybe a little bit of a split up.
Yeah.
Could be two proper areas.
Hopefully it's not the case. We don't want to, but we'll see. John, I appreciate it. Keep your eyes on it. Let it know. Another storm chaser that we're helping out the National Weather Service in Jackson, we're looking at here, said that when this north circulation crossed near the Brooksville area, strong winds, blinding rain, but nothing tornadic. Looking at that point there, no damage out of this. He's following behind it. We'll get more information from him here in a minute, because this circulation there will cross Mississippi Highway 388. Probably is crossing it right now. But my concern is that the fact that I'm going to pull off our circles, it kind of implies a little more specificity than we necessarily have. The fact that this is, we have a couple spots here where this is trying really hard to get this aligned. The wind's coming from one direction. So essentially coming away from the radar like that, inbound there, and really essentially just how it's kind of tightening up. So it's trying very hard to produce a tornado, might be doing that. We can't confirm it at this moment here with tornado debris, thankfully, but that is concerning. See how that kind of tightens up right there? So I'd still show our circulation that is very near Mississippi Highway 388, but I don't want to underplay our hand on this circulation. It's along Drake Hill Road. Near Drake Hill Road, Cliftonville, tornado safe place now. This is picking up more mid-level circulation there as well behind it. So this storm is getting more organized. So Cliftonville, I'm not going to give as specific as we've been with some of these circulations. I'm going to give something a little wider. But I want to make sure that we're clear here that we think that this is trying very hard to produce a tornado. This is as organized as radar has shown this storm tonight. Looking at debris, looking back at precipitation there. I don't show tornado debris on it, but I would have my circulation probably right there south of the intersection of Mississippi Highway 388 and Mississippi Highway 792, moving toward Cliftonville and Bigby Valley. Time until it moves into Cliftonville, between 1 and 0 minutes, so pretty much now. Time before it moves to Bigby Valley, we're looking at about 6 minutes for you, assuming it's still going at about 40 miles per hour, 40, 45 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and clear that. Let's get that, make sure we get that speed up there. Yeah, we're still at 45 miles per hour. Okay. So about 45 miles per hour there until it makes its way into the Cliftonville, and only a couple minutes here if it's not in Cliftonville now before it tries to produce it again. So Bigby Valley, Cliftonville, all in the path of this storm that could potentially be a tornado at this time. So again, we're talking about tornado warning here. Doppler radar indicated rotation. Spotters in the field have yet to reconfirm this. We had a tornado confirmed on this when it was in Winston County. At night like this, it's typically damage after the fact. And then it takes a few moments for the spotter to get that report in either to us or the National Weather Service. And so the concern is that you lose that time, and it's not an instantaneous thing. And so if we find ourselves in that tornado safe place, we're just going to be in good shape either way. And so Bigby Valley, Cliftonville, that means a sturdy structure. We want to be on the lowest floor, in the middle of the lowest floor. Find a small windowless room, wrap up in blankets and pillows, put on a helmet to protect yourself from debris, and stay there until we can give you the all clear. We have to be in some place that is safe. What is not safe would be cars, trucks, and mobile homes, large open rooms, upper floors, and rooms with windows. We need to avoid all of those. Lowest floor of a sturdy structure where we need to go. And if you live ahead of this out in the Pickens County, make sure you have a reliable way. If your signal goes out, your TV signal, we do stream live at WTVA.com, whether it's Weather Call, the Weather app, Weather Radio, Code Red, or the FEMA app. Probably think multiple layers of this in addition to whatever coverage we do here to make sure you know when you're in that danger zone there. And certainly we feel that that is the case. There's a significant concern here south of the Cliftonville area as well. I'm going to wind this a little more. Let's make sure we're not missing something up here toward Forreston as well as our storm continues. The wind mode here is not as impressive. Let's look out of Birmingham, which is going to be way too far away, but I just want to make sure that's still weak there. It was a suspicious looking, yeah, clearly the south one here is where even Birmingham is getting a strong look at it there. But there's a suspicious look to the overall shape up there close to Forreston. Just on the rainfall mode here, the fact that kind of balls out there a little bit in advance, kind of have this little fist jutting out. Let's just get you a track just to be careful. The wind does not match it, but I'd much rather do our due diligence and not. Forreston within 1 minute. You are still in this tornado warning. We need to be in that tornado safe place if you live near the Forreston community, far southeast corner of Lowndes County. That tornado warning in effect until 8:45 p.m. As we clear that off, let's look closer at the winds on the central and southern portion of this storm. Let's make sure we're not missing something down toward Macon, because as we do a longer loop here, we have other thunderstorms that have kind of come in here, and we'll have to watch this part back toward Meshulaville. I don't think it's at that point yet, but looking at the wind mode, that's getting a little more organized. Now, this is not the tornado warning that we are tracking it for, but this is getting a little more organized. And so while you are in the tornado warning in Macon, I'd be thinking pretty hard about staying in that tornado safe place or going back there if you live in Macon. We're 11 minutes away with this circulation back southwest to you that is getting a little more organized. It's not a tornado probably at this point, but there might not be a ton of heads up before that happens. So Macedonia within 1 minute there and continue to work its way toward Dinsmore, 25 minutes, Aubrey, and at 28 minutes. The northern storm is the stronger at this point near Cliftonville. I don't know that our circulation is as strong as it was a few minutes ago, so we have not been able to confirm a tornado touchdown with debris on this, thankfully. The returns we see there don't exactly align with what I would typically see out of tornado debris, even though we kind of have some weird colors showing up there, so that's a good sign. But I would say very near Mississippi Highway 388, near Cliftonville, and Bigby Valleys, where we have a circulation, a rotation on this that could potentially try to produce a tornado. I think we're probably past that peak time frame we were talking about a few minutes ago there, so hopefully that means we don't get reports out of this. So I'm going to go kind of a wider, bigger circle on this because there is more uncertainty than what we had a little bit ago, which is good. Uncertainty is a good thing. But right there, pretty much on the doorstep of Bigby Valley where we have it. So this will be moving and crossing into Pickens County, Alabama. Time frame for Pickens County, Alabama, probably no more than about 4 minutes or so, 4 to 5 minutes by the time it crosses the Alabama state line. Now, Pickens County, Alabama does not have a tornado warning on it. National Weather Service in Birmingham is looking very closely as to whether or not to extend this tornado warning. So being that it's in a slight weakening phase, they might not. But being that it has produced a tornado in the past, they might. So it could really go either way on that. But they have yet to, at this moment, extend the tornado warning for their locations as well. That flashing you see there shows the heaviest rainfall with this, which sometimes allows us to kind of illuminate the areas where our circulation a little more obvious there, even running a little ahead of the wind mode. So I'd show there's some spots up here toward Forston as well. I want to look closer again on the wind up there and including the Forston area. It's just not as pronounced there, but on the rainfall, it looks a little more interesting. So good sign. Hopefully that remains the case. Looking at the wind mode here, let's see if it'll give us just how fast that circulation is. And we're probably not going to get huge values on this, hopefully. Yep, just shows only about 40 to 50 miles per hour on that circulation. So good sign there. Hopefully that continues at that level. So current time is 8:23. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Laubhan alongside our meteorologist John Dolusic. We've had multiple damage reports from this thunderstorm, including a tornado that briefly touched down east of the Louisville area within about the last 40 minutes or so. That was close to around 7:40 the time on that. We're near the far northeast corner of Noxubee County, the far southeast corner of Lowndes County. This is the zone right here approaching the Alabama state line that is showing signs of rotation that at some points has showed strong rotation within the last 10 to 15 minutes, but we are hopeful is on a little bit of a weakening trend. And what's probably contributing to that, all these rain showers out here. John was mentioning this a minute ago, this storm near Highway 17. Watch how that is kind of outrun the motion of the other storm. See how it's it was kind of southeast, now it's east of it. That's a sign that it's hopefully going through a little bit of a, it's going to stay out of the way. One concern, though, that I do have now looking at this as it works its way toward Bigby Valley is near Swamp Road. See how we kind of have this sticking back out the back end again there? Tells me that this is stronger winds working its way near the Alabama state line, near the Bigby Valley area, approaching the Tom-Bigby River area there. As it works its way eastward. So still some strong straight line winds out of this, up to 50, maybe 60 miles per hour, and then that circulation. Well, let's look at that. Yeah, I mean, I'd have our circulation right over the Bigby Valley area at this moment, which is the reason why this tornado warning does continue for some of those folks there. So Bigby Valley, we need to be in that tornado safe place, which we've discussed, of course, lowest floor of a sturdy structure. Let's check out our thunderstorm in the southern part of Noxubee County. That does not look quite as organized near the Macedonia community as it was a few minutes ago. Still showing at least some circulation there at this time. As we show that loop there. This is heading a little bit more in a direction. The angle of it probably clips the south side of Macon. So if this were to strengthen more, and we're still luckily in the if not will or not guaranteed phase, we're about 6 to 7 minutes away from the south part of Macon and approaching Mississippi Highway 14 between Macon and McLeod there at about 10 minutes from now. So it's still fairly broad, still fairly weak, but there's not always a ton of heads up that happens with these on a night like this. Let's go wide for a moment. Let's make sure we're not missing something else on one of the other thunderstorms that we have. We do have these other thunderstorms that have matured more for locations that are also in this tornado watch. The tornado watch, as we've talked about, does extend in the areas in blue here until 1 o'clock in the morning. So we do expect this, if you're out here toward Pontotoc or New Albany or Houston or Kilmichael or Eupora, you're back behind this line, so your potential for tornado is unlikely at this point, and so you're really, even Tupelo, I would say, probably past your chance to really see something out of this So for those of you tuning in concerned about some of those locations, I think we can probably let you off the hook on this at this point. Looking at the wind mode, just to see if we, on the very wide scale here, can see something that kind of catches our eye. Out there, let's look closer. Still fairly small storm, but the one approaching the Una community would be one. So let's get Una, Prairie, I mean, catch Aberdeen or even Amory in this if this were to hold together. Una in 7 minutes into Una. Prairie 18 minutes, Aberdeen 27 minutes, and Amory in 37 minutes. So a little bit of rotation. It's a very small storm. It would be a large task for that to take the next step and produce a tornado, but we're going to watch it nonetheless. Looking at wind up here toward Wren, I don't have any circulation really showing up in that part of the line, nor any of the stuff that's in Tupelo, up toward Guntown, Iuka. That's all below severe limits. Eupora, I'd say same thing. As we look back southwest, there are thunderstorms in kind of this zone here that do continue to try to strengthen a little bit more, so we'll have to watch those as those eventually probably target locations, Louisville, Macon, eastward. It's not until our front comes through the north and west that we really start eliminating folks from that potential there. So here's our tornado warning, continues until 8:45, but I'm going to give this a couple more minutes, and then this storm will have exited Lowndes and Noxubee counties, and we'll reassess whether or not we're going to continue this coverage. So let's look at wind mode here on Storm Track Doppler radar. Our circulation continues very near the Alabama state line. I mean, I put it just northwest of Pickensville by no more than probably a mile or two. So that's where our circulation is at this time, approaching Alabama Highway 14. So locations in the path of this will eventually include Reform, Stanzel, Carrollton, all in the path of this as it moves that direction. Carrollton 16 minutes, Beards Mill in 17 minutes, Stanzel in 21 minutes, and Reform in 25 minutes. This is a Doppler radar indicated rotation. I do feel like it's on the downswing over the last 10-15 minutes or so. I do think with that as a backdrop, that's probably why the National Weather Service in Birmingham is going to wait to see if it strengthens again to issue a tornado warning. So with that in mind, I'll say this. I do believe that this is probably exited Noxubee County. Let's make sure that storm back southwest hasn't gotten stronger. Then what we're going to do is we're probably going to return folks to their regular schedule of programming and continue our live stream at WTVA.com and the weather and news apps. So let's double check this first before we do it, just to make sure. Hey, nothing more than we send you back, and then we feel prompted to come right and cut back in just a moment. So let's make sure that we're right on this. I would say that this is broadened out enough that we're probably in good shape, and part of it is just the angle in the radar. Another part of it is that it has weakened. So I'm going to say I think we're probably in good shape from this. So what we're going to do is we're going to send you back to your regularly scheduled programming. We'll have more coverage on this as necessary, of course. WTVA.com, the live stream going on there, and the WTVA weather and news apps. If a tornado warning is prompted for your area, a reminder that we do stream live at those spots, but also a reminder that you want to make sure you have multiple ways to find out if you're in the danger zone, whether it's Weather Call, the weather app, NOAA Weather Radio, Code Red, FEMA app. Make sure you have multiple sources just in case. I'm meteorologist Matt Laubhan alongside meteorologist John Dolusic. We'll monitor things here from the Weather Center. Updates at 9 on WLOV Fox News. Keep it here for the best coverage.